All right, it is 7 o'clock. We'll call the August meeting of the Trousdale County Planning Commission to order. Before we start on our agenda, I would like to send the support and the love of all the members of the Planning Commission to our fellow commissioner, Mary Ann Baker. Just want her to know that we are happy to support her in any way we can. We love her. And if there's anything we can do to help her at this time, I know any of us would be glad to do so. And we hope she gets back soon. And personally, I just can't imagine something like this. But again, we just want her to know how much we love her and how much we support her. All right, we will call the meeting to order. I'll call the roll tonight. If I can remember it, I thought it was up here. I may not. Mary Ann Baker's not here. Sarah Murray's not here. I believe everyone else is, aren't we? Everyone else is present. Miss Rosalie has graciously said she would do our minutes tonight. So she's taking that task on, and we appreciate that. Next on our agenda is the approval of the July minutes. Everyone's had a copy of this now for quite some time, had a chance to look over it and make any recommendations. But has anybody seen anything since then that we need to go back and correct or change or add to? If not, I would accept a motion to approve last month's minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Swalfer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. They are approved unanimously. Oh, what's wrong? The election is on. So we elect officers for the Planning Commission tonight. I thought most of that was done in September. I know on the others, but I mean, if it's tonight, that's fine, but every August. Okay, is that right, Mayor?
I would have to look at it, but I think the bylaws for the county commission, I believe they do say August, but I have to go back and check to make
That's
sure.
fine. We can go ahead and do it tonight. I'm really hoping for a coup if would not bother me at all. So next thing on our agenda is the election of officers for the year 2023. We need to elect a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. So I guess we will start with chairman. The floor is now open. The floor is now open. Mr. Noller.
Make a motion to appoint Johnny Kerr as chairman.
I have a motion to appoint Johnny Kerr as chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion the nomination be ceased.
I was afraid of that. Okay, I have a motion that the nomination cease. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. All right, and I don't mind. But if there's, somebody would like to assume the mantle, all you ever have to do is let me know. Next is the role of vice chairman. The floor is now open for nominations for vice chairman. Mr. Noller.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Thomas.
Motion to nominate David Thomas. You meant Thomas?
No, David Thomas.
That's what I called him. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I knew who he meant. You kind of threw me there because they played football together. They got this thing already mapped out. Have a motion for David Thomas to be vice chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Keesley. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
make a motion the nomination cease.
Have a motion that the nomination cease. Do I have a second? Have a second. All in favor of Mr. Thomas being vice chair, say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Mr. Thomas, you are the new vice chair of the Hartsville-Trousdale County Planning Commission. Next is the office of secretary. Mr. Noller,
Mary Ann Baker.
I have a nomination for Mary Ann Baker. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second. Is there anyone other nominations? No other nominations? Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that the nomination cease.
Do I have a second to that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So Mary Ann can continue on as secretary, and she does a fantastic job. All right, let's get into our agenda now. First item under old business is a request by 113 Planter Street LLC for rezoning of 2.13 acres on Harper Avenue from R3 to I1 for an addition to an adjoining business there. Is there anyone here for representing Planter Street LLC? Yes, sir. Come up to the microphone there, please. Push the button and turn it on. Give us your name so our secretary can get that, and then state your business.
Corey Hershkowitz.
Go ahead, sir.
Just looking to have that plot rezoned so that we can add additional space to the warehouse.
Is everybody familiar with where this property is? Everybody's familiar with it. Any questions for the gentleman? Mr. Thomas?
I do have a question for Sam. On this property, could they have put it, could it be rezoned commercial and a warehouse be put on it?
Give me a second and I'll check on it. I don't answer questions off the fly without being very sure, because most of these commercial and manufacturing zoning districts have a lot of options. Let me check real quick.
Yeah, they do have a lot of uses permitted and that type of thing. So let's
And-
give Sam a minute. Yes, sir.
When I was reading through it, that's what so I'm just trying to find someone else's opinion to see if personally adding more industrial to that area is not something I think is really favorable for town. We keep hearing complaints when the concrete company came in, and that most people didn't like the industrial dead center of town there. So I was just wondering if there was another zoning option that would help the individual still be able to do what he needs to do without having more industrial in the middle of town.
Okay. Do any member of the commission have a question for this gentleman while Sam's looking up the zoning? Are y'all wanting to add on to your existing business? Is that what you said?
Yes, and I believe it was zoned previously and just looking to reverse it backwards.
I actually never received a complaint about the concrete factory personally. I'm sure There have been
I've-
some.
I've had noise complaints from them operating too early or too late. But that's outside of my jurisdiction to enforce.
Right. Right. And we expect all businesses to operate within the time given for operations.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we can just get her comments while we're waiting. Just to
That's true.
speed things up.
Keelan, would you like to give us your report on this?
Sure. So Sam can back me up later after he's doubly checked, but I think that warehousing is not allowed within the C1, and mini warehousing is the only type of storage or distribution allowed within the C2. So the type of warehousing they're interested in would not be allowed in C1 or C2. But Sam can triple check me on that. So regarding the property itself, this property does not have frontage along any constructed public streets. However, it does front along a public right-of-way at the intersection of Hayes Avenue and Harper Avenue, both of which are considered local roads for the major transportation plan. The surrounding properties are zoned R1 low density residential and I1 general industrial, as well as C2 highway commercial. This property is within the Hartsville Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District and appears to have access to an 8-inch sewer line along Hayes and a 6-inch water line along the margin of Hayes and the western margin of this property. The property is not within the special flood hazard and does not appear to have any significant slopes. I've included for your reference the district descriptions for the R3 as well as the proposed I1 with all of the proposed uses. So this parcel is roughly 2.31 acres and at maximum would allow for a 10,000 square foot building on the lot. If this, I believe the plan is to combine these two properties, so it would have access via what is it, the one that's right there, the street that it already fronts on. Yeah, McMurray Boulevard. But if not, if you choose not to consolidate those, then some offsite improvements may be required to extend that street and that public frontage to the property itself. Other than that, staff has no issue.
Sam?
Okay, so the C2 district is the only one that the zoning designation is the only one that we could really actually look at. We can loosely maybe look at the C1, but from my understanding, it's for further down here. But C2, there's some very loose terminology that we might be able to slide it into. But the problem is in I1, it specifically says printing. And that's their entire business is printing. So, but it also has a lot of other things like storage, warehousing, all that stuff. So it fits perfectly in I1, where C2, we would be stretching a very thin line.
Since I1 does specifically mention this particular line of work, obviously, I think that would be the where we should consider. Any more questions for Sam, Keelan, or this gentleman? Okay, we do have someone in, if you'd like to just sit down a minute, sir. And I'm gonna murder this last name, don't kill me, but,
That was him.
oh, okay. Never mind. You were the one signed up. I don't have to murder your name. So any questions for Corey? Okay, discussion.
So this property, if y'all remember, we rezoned it to R3 to put the townhomes in there. I think it was a year ago, but y'all know how time is. Some of the property has been cut off for that garage that's in the back, so it has shrunk in size a little bit, but it was previously one before this. The warehouse that they're wanting to add on as an addition to the warehouse that's currently there is just slightly over the line for where the property line is at the moment. And because if they were to go ahead and add that property together, which I've already seen the preliminary on that, it still doesn't fix the zoning issue. So I can't let them drop a warehouse 5 feet into a different zone. So either way, they either need to figure something else out or they need to rezone it. So.
I do have to say towards your response, in my lifetime, all I remember in that whole area was either tobacco warehouses or some sort of industrial business has always been, you had the animal auction and all the stuff that goes with that. And then you had the shirt factory was just right up across the street from it. So in my lifetime, that's all it's ever been is an industrial area. Probably, and of course a lot of that was before zoning. So never really had the opportunity to zone it correctly. Anyone else have a comment or discussion? All right, so what is the will of the commission? What this gentleman is asking for is that we send this rezoning request to the Trousdale County Commission with a favorable recommendation. Of course, we can do it with a favorable, an unfavorable, or we can just send it. But it does have to go from here to the county commission. What's the will of the body?
I'll make a motion that we send it to the county court with a favorable recommendation.
Have a motion that is sent on with a favorable recommendation. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Nolan. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. All ayes and one no. Mr. Thomas votes no, Ms. Rosemary. All right, it will go to the county commission with a favorable recommendation from this body. Next is our new business. We have a request by Mr. Steve Lynn for the rezoning of 10 acres, 10 at 1655 Belcher Lane from A1 to R1 for lot separation. Mr. Lynn?
I'm Steve Lynn, and I have 20 acres on Belcher's Lane. I built my mom a house on the road frontage of that 20 acres, and I'm just trying to get the house and 1 acre in her name. It's a reason for the rezoning R1.
Well, you just said house and 1 acre. Here, it's rezoning of 10 acres.
I'm just wanting 1 acre,
Oh, okay.
giving her 1 acre.
So we need to, commissioners, you need to change that 10 to a 1.
Yes,
Correct,
sir.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just trying to get our agenda correct. Okay. So what we have is a request by Mr. Lynn for the rezoning of 1 acre on Belcher Lane, 1655 from A1 to R1 so that the house built for his mother can be a lot of record.
Yes, sir.
Questions for Mr. Lynn? Yes, sir.
So on the map that we have, it shows multiple lots there and that 1 acre cutting across the front of 2. So do you own all the lots?
Yes,
there?
sir.
Okay.
I have 4 or 5 acre tracts, and my permanent residence is on 10 of those acres.
Okay.
So I was just wanting to keep A1 19 acres. I give mom the road frontage, which is in front of my house, just for her where it stands in case down the road she needs to you know, it's one of her major assets, in case she needs to get rid of it. It don't affect the rest of my property.
I guess my concern was looking at those two lots, I guess since you own all of it, it won't matter. Because that's cutting the road frontage off of those two lots.
But I've got the other adjoining road frontage on the other side. Yes, sir.
So depending on y'all's vote, if it's a favorable vote, we'll ask Mr. Lynn to produce a legal description of that front 1 acre piece on these two lots here. And then I will also discuss with him and the surveyor to go ahead and combine the other two lots so they're not dead lots.
That would get it all cleared up at one time.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Mr. Lynn while he's up here? Ms.
I
Ryan?
need some more clarification.
Okay.
So we're combining the A1s, so he'll have road frontage on the other ones?
So the 1 acre that he's requesting is actually on the front
Yeah,
section.
I
of
rode
the-
down there and looked at it.
Yeah, of the two pieces.
Right.
But because if we decide that that's a favorable recommendation to cut that off, he'll end up with 2 dead lots, which he knows. I will ask for him to get a legal description so we can take it to the county court. At that point, he will have 2 dead lots in the back, so he'll have to combine that. You have to combine that with his other bigger lot next door to make it a feasible lot.
That's why I said clean it up. That would help him in the future.
Yes, sir.
Should need to do something, you know,
Yes, sir.
that way it already be done.
Because I actually had the soil areas relocated up there on that 1 acre and all that way in case I was able to get it voted R1, it stood for itself.
Right.
And my property just runs in behind it now.
Any other questions for Mr. Lynn? Before we go to Keelan? Ms. Keelan?
Absolutely. So, as we said, this is a rezoning from A1 to R1. For, apparently about 1 acre. I also have this incorrect in my notes, as 10 acres. So both properties have frontage along Belcher Lane, which is considered a collector street for the, major transportation plan. The surrounding properties are all zoned A1. They are within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District, and it appears that there is a 4-inch water line along Belcher Lane, but there is no sewer line. And then both properties are located in an AE special flood hazard area, but I believe the area or the location of the proposed home was outside of that area. I've included A1 and R1 zoning district descriptions. So the minimum lot area is 1 acre. So it's going to be slightly off because this was for the 2 properties of 5.03 acres and 5.05 acres, but with 1 acre, they would be allowed one unit with public water and no public sewer, or they would be allowed 2 or 1 duplex, 1 2-unit with public water and no public sewer with a maximum lot coverage of 40%. So because the property has access to water and but sewer does not extend in this area, both properties are located within the flood zone, but this proposed building would be outside of that. And both parcels meet the requirements for the R1 zoning district. So staff recommends approval.
Okay. Any questions for Keelan? Sam, did you finish your report or get something else to add?
Keelan's covered everything on it. The only correction I have, not correction, but a thing to add is even though our zoning map shows that there's no R1 on that area, that is mostly correct because the majority of that peninsula is agriculture. But right at Puryear's Bend, where it comes into a point, I have found that there are R1 there. That's a correction that I'm got on my personal map that we're working on getting everything put in that I have found, and then we're going to get everything corrected in one go. it costs money for us to keep printing these maps every time I find one, and I've found a lot.
So what Sam's doing is on these items that he's finding instead of just kind of building it up, and then we can get that all corrected and to get the maps corrected at one time. And I'm sure that's a job. All right, any questions for Sam? All right, discussion? Any motions? Mr. Noller,
Make a motion to approve this request, and then pass it on with favorable recommendation.
Mr. Noller makes a motion to send this to the county commission with a favorable stamp from the planning commission. Mr. Harper,
I second that motion.
second by Mr. Harper. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass unanimously. Mr. Lynn,
Thank you very much.
you ready to go? Mr. Mayor? What am I doing? Oh. Okay. Next on our agenda is a request from Dustin Marcelino for the rezoning of 6.195 acres on Western Avenue from I-1 to R3 for development in the 7th Civil District. Mr. Marcelino?
So that is, since Mr. David has brought that to our attention, he found this wonderful rezoning request that was approved a year ago. No, sorry, several years ago. He brought that to our attention that it never got updated on the map, like the ones that I was just mentioning. I pulled all rezonings from Rita for the past 15 years. I don't know why that one wasn't in it, but we've got it corrected now. It is an R1 property.
Yeah.
So he's requesting to go to R3. So if y'all could just annotate that and we'll move on.
And I was going to correct that, but I was reading it the way it was on the agenda. But we, through our emails, David brought this up and I chimed in, and it has been a few years now that this was changed to R1.
It's the benefit of having old knowledge on the planning commission. I said it's the benefit to having old knowledge on the planning commission.
Life expectancy don't last too long when you start calling me old. But you're right. Sir, would you state your name, please, for the secretary, and then go ahead?
Yes, my name is Alan Dixon. Mr. Marcelino's in the back. We're partners on, or looking to partner in on this deal. So he asked me to speak.
Sure, no problem.
So I actually have some layouts of kind of what we're thinking for the property.
Sure.
If you'd like
go
to
ahead and hand them out if you don't mind.
Yes, I had approached Mr. Marcelino a few months ago about the property. He owns the property on Western Avenue, right beside the old boat factory. And we were talking about what could it be, what was the best use for the property. It has a lot of good things going for it. It does have sewer. Now it is beside a boot factory, which I know that has probably caused something in the past on R1. But we're thinking through what all could be done. And I propose, hey, what if we look into putting some apartments on? So we looked into what that would look like. I kind of drew just basic concept of what we're thinking, how it would potentially look, and wanted to hear your thoughts.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
I'm sorry, Alan Dixon.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Dixon? Yes, sir.
So when we originally referred this for rezoning,
David,
it also got.
can you lean forward?
Yeah. it also got brought back to us and then was asked to be subdivided into 6 lots at the R1 zoning. Is there any particular reason why the change from wanting to do single family homes to apartments?
I think since again, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, but I'm pretty sure since he has owned it, he was never intending on doing R1. I think that was the previous owner that had purchased it.
It was. I know the older gentleman that owned it before that came and got it all rezoned and stuff. And just so y'all may not know the whole story, but he actually wanted to get it rezoned to R3 for multi-family.
Okay.
And this body would not do it. We sent it to the planning commission with an unfavorable, to the county court with an unfavorable recommendation. And they upheld that because of the neighborhood. Didn't know if y'all were aware of all that.
Okay, got it.
But that's the whole story about the rezoning back that only us old people know about.
Yeah, as you can see, I kind of put it, I do know the sewer is coming down Western. And so as we were thinking through what would be, what could we do to make it look nice? Because that's kind of what we're after is how do we, if we're going to do it, we want it to be somewhere people want to live. So instead of just throwing something out there that doesn't look very great, we wanted to see what that would look like.
Sounds good. Questions for Mr. Dixon? No questions for Mr. Dixon? All right. Ms. Keeler?
So I don't have too much to add after that, but so this property does consist of about 6.2 acres roughly, and has frontage along Western Ave, which is considered a local road for the major transportation plan. The surrounding properties are zoned I-1 general industrial and R1 low density residential. So the properties the property is within the Hartsville-Trousdale water and sewer utility district, and appears that an 8-inch sewer line extends along Western Ave and along the eastern edge of the property, as well as an 8-inch water line that runs along Western Ave and a 12-inch water line that runs along the eastern edge of the property. So worth noting is this property is partially located within a Zone A special flood hazard area. That will need to be taken into account with any development. I've included the district descriptions in here, as well as the minimum bulk standards. So for this property, which is roughly 6.2 acres, that at maximum would allow for 45 single-family lots or 24 duplex lots or 61 multifamily units based on that 3,600 square foot minimum lot area per dwelling unit. This is like maximum density will likely be difficult to achieve due to the portion of the lot being located within the flood zone. So the property does meet the minimum lot requirements for the R3 zoning district. There's access to public water and sewer, and the lot has road frontage along this local street. And is located partially within a Zone A flood hazard area, but otherwise staff recommends approval.
You say recommend?
Recommends approval.
Okay, thank you, Keelan. Any questions for Keelan? Okay, Sam?
So Keelan covered the flood zone. The flood zone does cover a portion of this lot. That's something that we can address when it comes to, if it gets to the site plan phase. We'll look at the flood zone, and there are alternatives to fix that. In my opinion of this project that's being presented, this lot has sat there vacant for as long as I've lived here. And it's sitting right next to a dilapidated warehouse, putting some new structures down there, some fresh structures down there, and especially some apartment units that I believe this county needs. And their proposal is to have a pool in this for those units. I think it's an excellent plan and it's a good use of this property that's being unused. Another thing to add with the flood zone the way it is, chopping this up into smaller 1 acre lots and doing individual family homes, with the warehouse sitting there next door, is going to be harder for some of these contractors. It's a little more unappealing for their price range on what they're trying to get. So somebody that's like this, that's investing for apartments for rental, it's more appealing to them because it's rent. It's not trying to flip a house and sell and make money. So this, for this particular lot and where it's located, with the warehouse there, I think it's going to improve the area. It's going to add needed living space in Trousdale County, and especially if they put the pool in there, I think that'd be nice since we've been having some issues with that in the county anyways. But I like this plan and I think it's workable. So that's my opinion.
Okay, any questions for Sam before we go to just discussion?
Sure. So, looking at this, your statement of it being less appealing, I can tell you the lots across from the dilapidated building had no trouble selling those houses. Looking at what Keely, reading through on a multi-family unit, you can only get 61 units in there. Their rough drawing that they brought would give them 72. So what they're wanting to do won't even fit on the property. And I granted that would be something we would discuss when they would bring a site plan to us, but between that and I don't see a change in the neighborhood from where we voted on this before. So has there something else changed that we're unaware of?
I'm not sure your question. Again, it was just my opinion on the project. But you're also looking at square footage on ground level. If it's 2-story units like the one we just did over here, you're adding more units because you're going vertical.
I believe Mr. Dixon wanted to make a statement about the rough drawing there.
One of the reasons why we had put 72, and I could completely be wrong. I noticed on the agenda it had said 61. Though when I was looking at it in the current zoning, the way that I was reading it was 12 units in R3 is 12 units per gross acre, and there's just under 6.2 acres. So if we go 6 acres times 12, that's where I came to the 72. I wasn't sure where the 61 came from, and if I'm wrong, but that's how we came to the 72. And the thing is too, is when you build, what we've learned is when you build 8 units, you know, you can build an apartment unit and it's fine. People can live there. But when you're able to take maybe 6 acres and you make it, you can put 70 or 61 or even 72 units in there. You have enough people living in the complex that you can do something like he had mentioned, putting a pool, having a clubhouse, making it a little nicer than something you can't do if you have 12 units, 16 units. So that's one of the reasons that made it attractive when I talked to Mr. Marcelino is it's big enough. It's not huge. You know, you can't put 300 units all at once in one place, but it's big enough that you can have enough units that I believe you can create a better experience for the tenants, which is kind of what we were after.
And I'm not sure where the 61 came from. When I read, it's not on the agenda. When I read the agenda, it was 6.195 acres. So we might have got that 6.1. It is on there. Okay. Oh, staff notes. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Thank you, sir, for clearing that up. Other questions?
Sam, where's the nearest R3 to this? Do you know?
So when you go up the hill, and you have the county building on the left, the road crew, it's the R3 is on the right.
And then there's the apartments behind Anthony's funeral home also. I believe it's.
There's
Yes.
several on the McMurray Boulevard side. There's several. And then you've got some going down Halltown, R3.
I think the closest R3 actually would be Dogwood, is it Dogwood? Right across from there, behind there would be where those duplexes are, would be the closest R3, rather than up by the county garage. That would be on Western. Then you have that row of houses, and behind there, there's some duplexes.
That's old knowledge. That's something I'll have to look into. If you think it's R3, I'll,
No, I don't know. I mean, again, they've been there for many, many, many years. It's probably one of those things that it's just never been updated, you know. But if we were to, since they've been there, they would be grandfathered in. I would think that would be R3.
they wouldn't. That's,
Other questions, comments? My comment would be the same that it was a few years ago. To me, this is an R1 neighborhood, and we have typically been very strict on putting multifamily homes in our R1 neighborhoods. That's my opinion as a commissioner. I'm not giving you advice as your chairman. I'm just stating my opinion. Anyone else? Okay. Do I have any motions? Again, we do have to send it. This is a request for rezoning. We do have to send it to the county commission to be for their consideration. It can be with a favorable recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation, or we can just send it. Mr. Thomas?
I'd like to make a motion to send it with an unfavorable recommendation.
Okay. Do I have a second? All right, then I'll second. All in favor? Since I got a feeling this is going to be a split vote, all in favor, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All against, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. It will go to the to the county commission with an unfavorable recommendation by a 4-3 vote. Okay. You know what's going to be kind of, and this is not with this project, but is this going to come up at the first reading at the August meeting?
this one that we just did.
Any of them?
Yes.
I'm not being.
All the rezonings, but yes.
So you've got one commission is going to do first reading on it, and then the new commission is going to do the second reading on it. I see very much a process of what's going on coming up. You know, our timing hasn't, it's kind of weird, isn't it? But so we've sent on 3 rezoning requests, and 2 commissions are actually going to act on it. So who knows what's going to happen. All right, next on our agenda is a Group E parcel 30.02 from I1 to R3 for development. Am I reading the same thing? Okay. I need to go on down then. A request by Louis Beasley for the rezoning of 60.66 acres on Dalton Hollow from A1 to R1 for matching adjoining parcels in the 7th district. Mr. Beasley, are you speaking, or is Jim on your behalf? You sure can. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
He wants to get it rezoned for future use.
Okay.
The rest of, if you look at the,
Oh, wait, he's got a mic now. Thank you, Mayor. Go ahead, Mr. Beasley.
I want to get rezoned for future use. You hear that?
I can now.
Okay.
Please say it again, so we,
I want to rezone for future use.
okay,
And
everybody.
my adjoining property is R1.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Beasley is asking that this property be rezoned for future development. Any questions for Mr. Beasley while he's got a microphone and can answer them? Okay. Keelan?
Absolutely. So this property is 60.66 acres on Dalton Hollow Road. Currently zoned A1. The property has access at several points. It looks like it was once a larger tract that has had a couple of road frontage lots carved off. So it has access to Dalton Hollow Road at various points. Those points along the road frontage totals to about 1,150 feet of road frontage. Dalton Hollow Road is considered a local road. The surrounding properties are zoned R1 and A1. And many of the road frontage lots along Dalton Hollow Road there that have been cut off this parcel are residentially developed. The properties are outside the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District, but a 6-inch water line extends along the margin of Dalton Hollow Road and no public sewer is available. And it's also not located in a special flood hazard area and it doesn't have any significant slopes greater than 20%. So as far as the bulk standards for this property, it is a fairly large tract. At maximum, it would allow for 60 single-family lots or 155 duplex lots with public water and no public sewer. So because the property has access to public water, there is access to a local road. However, new construction would be required to achieve the maximum allowed density under the proposed R1 zoning. So for future development, you could possibly get the 60 as it is now. It would be very difficult if you're just to chop it up without any constructing any additional streets. But staff does propose approval.
Okay. Any questions for Keelan? Sam?
I don't have much more than what Keelan's covered already. Mr. Beasley's property, if you look at the zoning map that's online, the majority of his currently owned property, which is all around that, is already zoned R1, which is why he's requesting to rezone for future use and to match the adjoining lots. And this will be also on the next copy, that his other pieces across the street.
You recommend?
There's, like Keelan said, this particular property touches the road at 3 points. It would limit him down to 3 lots unless he installs infrastructure to create a fully developed subdivision in the back. With the amount of R1 that's here, that area could develop with a very large contractor with the amount of acreage that's already R1. It's not spot zoning. The biggest question would be the rezoning on Dalton Hollow.
Okay. Questions for Sam? Okay, discussion? Any motions? Am I jumping ahead too quick?
I'll make a motion to send it with a favorable approval.
Do I have a second? Second by Mark. I do have a motion and a second to send this to the county commission with a favorable recommendation. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Everybody to one. Mr. Noller voted no, everybody else was yes. Okay, it does pass. Will be sent with a favorable recommendation. Mr. Beasley's next on the agenda with a request for the rezoning of 85 acres on 2265 Highway 141 North from A1 R1 to R1 for correction of parcel zoning, and that's also in the 7th Civil District. Mr. Beasley?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to do the same with that property.
Okay.
I just bought that farm. It joins me on the Dalton Hollow Road. It also joins Hash Branch in there.
So again, Mr. Beasley's asking for a rezoning for future development.
And several houses right in the middle of it,
Okay.
already out there.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Beasley? Okay. Keelan?
All right, so a couple facts about this property. It is 85 acres. It does have frontage on both sides of Highway 141 North. Highway 141 North is considered an arterial road. The surrounding properties are zoned R1 residential and A1 agricultural forestry. The properties are not included inside the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District. However, there is a 4-inch water line that extends along the margin of Highway 141 North. No public sewer is available in this area. A portion of the property on the west side of Highway 141 North is in a special flood hazard area, but there also do not appear to be any other significant slopes. I've included the district's descriptions, the bulk standards. So it is 85 acres, which definitely meets the minimum lot size for this zoning. And it would allow for 85 single-family lots or 217 duplex lots with public water and no public sewer. So the property has access to public water, but does not have access to public sewer. There is an access to public right-of-way along Highway 141 North and Harris Branch Road. TDOT would need to approve any future street access off of any state route, just worth noting for future development. And a portion of the property is located in a Zone A flood zone, which would need to be addressed within the development as well. But otherwise, staff recommends approval.
Okay. Any questions for Keelan? Sam?
So as was mentioned, this lot was recently purchased. It adjoins Mr. Beasley's current lots on Harris Branch. And it crosses the street of 141 and wraps around these existing lots that are there that are already R1 across 141. So he has R1 on Harris Branch and he has R1 on 141 that on both sides of this chunk of land it's touching, and a portion of this actual lot is already R1. The lots that are there, there's 3 lots that are zoned R1 that are 3 acres there. And then there's 1 lot that's zoned R1 that's 0.75 acres that's already there that he wraps around with his connection to multiple roads. I don't see any issue with it.
Any questions for Sam? Discussion? What Mr. Beasley's doing is what we've always talked about, people coming in with large lots for development. That's how you get big subdivisions and that type of thing. That's my discussion. Any other discussion? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to send it to the county commission with a favorable recommendation.
Have a motion by Ms. Keesling to send it with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second it.
Have a second by Mr. Thomas. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously. It will be sent to the county commission with a favorable recommendation. Next on our agenda is a preliminary plat by Fleming Homes LLC for Freedom Farm subdivision, 16.21 acres on Templo Road and Bass Road for 6 lots located in the 5th Civil District. Anyone here for Fleming Homes, I'm sorry?
Good
Yes, sir.
evening, Jordan Fleming, here to answer any questions, comments, or concerns.
Any questions before we go to Keelan and talk about this plat? This is a preliminary plat. No questions for Mr. Fleming? Okay, Keelan?
So this property, as we said, is 16.21 acres total. It is currently zoned R1 residential. The surrounding properties are zoned for agricultural uses. The minimum lot area for property with access to public water, but without access to public wastewater, which is the conditions of these lots. That minimum lot size is 1 acre, and all of the proposed lots are greater than 1 acre. There are no subdivision regulation issues. There were a couple of outstanding comments on the plat that included, we've asked for the length and bearing of the property line between lots 5 and 6. We've asked they include the dimensions of the easement located on lot 5 for the benefit of lot 4. We've also asked for a note explaining that easement. And we've asked that they include the location of existing or proposed water lines or wells. But if the commission believes that they has confidence that those will be taken care of, then staff recommends approval conditional upon those comments.
We're not big on believing if they'll take care of. We usually put those in our motion that they will be taken care of or will not pass. Any questions for Keelan? Okay, Sam?
As long as all the plat issues that Keelan's got listed here are corrected and presented, I am willing to review them and stamp off on it based on if y'all approve or not. So, but everything else, Keelan's covered. The lot sizes are adequate. There's just some corrections that need to be done.
Okay, any questions for Sam? So if anyone, before we get to discussion, if anyone would like to make a recommendation, please include the plat issues in your motion. Questions for Sam, Keelan? Discussion? Mr. Thomas?
Sam, is there a 6-inch water line for both Tupelo Road and Bass for these properties? Do you know?
I've told you I don't like being called out. I believe it's a 6. I think there's a portion that's a 4.
You don't have to.
It's not a huge line. So
Usually it's drawn on and mentioned on the site plan, but what we have, I can barely make out anything on it. So I was just looking for clarification. Because if there is a 6-inch, there should be fire hydrant, shouldn't there?
yes, at least a fill up hydrant. That's why there's the different colors. But there should be. There's fill up hydrants all over the county. But for an actual usable fire hydrant, I'm not 100% sure without, let me see if I can bring it up on my phone. The clarity will be better than the image.
Keelan says she could bring it up, but we don't have Wi-Fi. I didn't. Thomas asked you a question.
Ain't that the best paid water district? don't think
Yeah, well, there's a line there. Hold on, I'll tell you that too.
Mr. Fleming, do you happen to know if it's a
It's a-
6-inch water line?
It's an invisible line. Let me make a guess for you.
I believe he's correct. There's a portion that is and a portion that isn't as well.
So
And the housekeeping items for the surveyor to add the easement and the description for it, I thought was taken care of, but I'll make sure that that's to you all tomorrow.
Okay, so to answer your question, it does fall within that left side of that known line that's there that Bethpage covers. There is, as you know, a gap of no water line between us and them. But it is inside the water line area for that. Another issue on the map, there is several R1 areas that are in the area already there that I've got annotated. On the Bass Road side, Bass Road has R2 and R1. Are you asking about the water or the zoning? The water. I told him I'm going to bring it up and try to look. I already had yours brought up, so it does fall within the Bethpage side.
So he's gonna look on the Bass Road side and see. Other discussion, questions or anything? Of course, this is preliminary, so when final came in, we would have more detailed information and you're right, Mr. Thomas. I believe we have been requiring fire hydrants on any 6-inch line that's feasible for those. Key word there being feasible. Sir, you think it's 4? You know, people pay, while we're waiting, people pay big money to go to those lodges, you know, where you sweat it all out of you. We might be missing out on a tourist opportunity.
That's true. Ms. Rosalie, can you help me pull that up in the email real quick? The Fleming Homes site plan. I get a lot of emails, so sorry.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I brought it up was because we have in the past, since we found that in the ordinances where it says shall.
Right.
That we have been making anyone who's subdividing without having the proper distance to a fire hydrant, put one in. I was just wanting to go ahead and add that to the site plan issue, the plat issues. That way they already know. So when they bring the final in, it's not a surprise for them.
I believe Mr. Fleming's understands that right now, but if you would like to put that in, if you would want to make a motion and add that to it. But again, this is preliminary, so we could wait and have more information later. Any other discussion? Is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
To save time and sweat, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this with the condition that the plat issues are resolved. And if we do find the 6-inch water line and it is feasible for the fire hydrant, that be put into the plan also.
Okay. I'm not going to repeat that. I think we all heard it. Do I have a second? No second? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
So I'll have to think about it for a second, but for the motion, do you want to leave him the option if there isn't a 6-inch water line to have the ability to make a 6-inch water line and extend? Because we can approve saying that you have to meet this, which he would have to pay to extend the Bethpage water line and install a larger one. Yes, go sir.
Just so I understand correctly, if there is a 6-inch line and say your regs are a fire hydrant within every 500 feet or so, sounds great. However, if you're asking for a water line improvement through the whole road, or just, let's say there's a cord here for these 2 lots that's 250 feet, you're asking me to improve that water line for 250 feet?
If there isn't a 6-inch water line, if I understand the motion correctly, then it doesn't pass.
Well, unless the housekeeping items get done, or is that combined too?
let me clarify. As I said in my motion, the housekeeping plat issues, then included with that, if feasible. Because if I'm not mistaken, that is the way it reads. If feasible, they shall be put in.
Right.
If he doesn't have a 6-inch water line to those properties,
You're not asking
I'm
him
not
to
asking him to pay
put one in at his, yeah. Yeah. And that's the way I took your motion, if it's there, but, and the reason I say feasible is you could have a 2-inch line running into a 6-inch. I mean, again, this is not our water district, so I mean, who knows? But that, I think you made a very good motion and I agree with it. And I think, Mr. Fleming, you have any questions about the motion?
No, thank you for the clarification. I'm good with that. If feasible, I'll be happy to
Okay.
add a hydrant if it's
Okay.
available.
Do I have a second to Mr. Thomas's motion?
I second.
Second by Mr. Swafford. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda. Site plan approval for Oldham Enterprises LLC for Cedar Brook Townhomes, 7.15 acres for addition of 4 buildings totaling 12 units in the 7th Civil District. Chad, you gonna tell me how old I am before we get up here? Jim, please go ahead.
Okay, does anybody need a big copy? Would anybody like a big plat?
Anybody want to see a big plat copy?
Okay, if that's not the case, that'll be just fine. Mr. Oldham is looking to basically, if you're familiar, he has, how many units do you have out there now? Okay, so he has 9 units out there just up New Halltown Road there, Cedar Brook. He's basically looking to basically make Cedar Brook Phase 2, real nice apartment complex right there. Looking to do 12 units on this 7 acres. And we'll try to address any questions you might have there.
Any questions for Jim? Yes, sir.
So Jim, with it being 7 acres, are there any plans to do anything towards the back of the property?
No, sir, definitely not at this time. I suppose that could be in the future, but it has a pretty good bank. If you're familiar with, as you cross just past the funeral home, it's real low. Well, that same real low is the backside of this property.
So his current lot that he's on, if you look, if you go pull into the subdivision and go around one of the units, you can see where it drops off. But it heads down to that ravine that has the sewer line that runs through that area. On the back end, that's the one that we were talking about, Craig Hall going into. So there is a significant drop off. So a large portion of the lot would be very difficult to use. It's not impossible. Anything's possible with money, but I don't think it's feasible.
Oh, Daddy's got plenty.
Well, and I can just also, everything's possible with money, but that low area is also within the flood zone, so there would be FEMA regulations at play as well.
I don't think we had anything to worry about. Keelan, do you have more to add to this?
Sure. So some of these things have changed as of today. But so as we said, this is a development across 7.15 acres for a 12-unit apartment. It does say on your notes here for lot 4 and 5, I believe they have just recently been combined, but they are zoned R3. So the surrounding properties are zoned commercial, residential, and agricultural. For the R3, permitted uses include multifamily dwellings. And for multifamily dwellings, the minimum lot area is 10,800 square feet with a minimum lot area of 3,600 square feet per dwelling unit with a permitted density of 12 units per acre. There's also a requirement that for any property that requires a site plan where it abuts any property that's zoned residential or agricultural, the developer shall provide a landscape buffer at the point of abutment with a solid fence no less than 7 feet. The site does but residentially zoned properties on both sides, so a buffer should be provided along both sides of the property lines. I believe the updated version I saw still just had one side, so we would want even between the two Cedar Home townhomes, because they're on different lots, they would want
Yeah,
to be. straight.
okay, so I'll let you finish, but then I'm going to address that with the commission if we
Okay.
can.
So as far as development standards for group housing projects, which is section 4.070, all of those standards have been reviewed and do meet the requirements of the code. There are just a couple of quick site plan comments that are remaining outstanding. I believe Jim is interested in addressing these now, but they include that we've asked that they include the proposed material for the buffer fence, that they specify a type of planting used for the buffer, so like evergreen or deciduous, I don't know, different types of trees. Buffer should be provided along both sides of the property line, and we've asked that they include the type and size of the proposed sign. But otherwise, if Planning Commission is confident that Sam and I can confirm that those comments are addressed, staff would recommend approval.
Okay. Jim, did you have something else you was gonna add? Yeah, we can share. Did you get one? Did you want to give Keelan one? Okay, okay.
All this is an aerial photograph, just so we can discuss this. I know we have our fence buffer rules and everything, and I know as a commission, we have to build basically a one size fits all kind of deal. But we would like to ask for a variance in this situation, given that Mr. Oldham owns a 7-acre tract right here. We understand the fence is to protect our neighbors, and we want to do that. Really, the only property that needs protection is Mr. Henry's property to the north, okay? We've got 600 foot of woods between the apartment complex and the Anthony Funeral Home property. I know we're ringing here. And so, I mean, I don't see a need of putting a fence back in the wilderness back there, 500 or 600 feet behind the apartment complex. It accomplishes nothing. And he would prefer not to put one between his two apartment complexes. He would sort of like to have a community feel there. He's got a little walk bridge across a little drain and stuff. And so he would prefer just to put one to protect Mr. Henry up through there. And as far as type of fence, he'll put a plank fence or something through there, and we'll address the foliage with Sam. I don't even know that it's going to need any plantings because it's in a thicket. It's going to be one of these things where he's going to run a shredder through, put up the fence, and nobody's going to see it ever again. So anyway, that's what we'd like to ask for, and we'll try to answer any questions you have there.
And if I may just really quickly give my opinion on that. So if there's existing vegetation that meets or exceeds the landscaping buffer requirements, then I would see no issue to use that existing planting. However, the two properties, I understand he wants them to feel the same, but they are different properties and could at any point be sold and reused or redeveloped or changed in some way. So because they are different lots, that requirement would still, staff thinks that requirement should still be adhered to.
Sam?
Keelan's covered the majority of it. I would just like to add, depending on y'all's decision, I would like to do, as the clearing takes place and they start doing site prep, I would like the authority in y'all's motion to monitor the vegetation that's left and tell them they need to add more, or if it's okay, because we're not going to know until the site prep's done. I don't want to just blanket say no vegetation is needed. I'd like to have authority say we need to add something else.
just some background information. Personally, I don't blame Chad for wanting to have his two properties visual with each other, and neighbors can go across and visit with neighbors and that type of thing. But I do believe, and I know they said this, that a fence and the line separating with Mr. Henry. Mr. Henry did come and speak against this project in the very beginning. So I think it would behoove us to remember that. And I know, I'm just kind of educating everybody, remembering and stuff. I understand. And so I don't see a problem with that, but I agree with Sam. He could work with Chad and them on that. Again, we have to remember that 50 years from now, it'll still be there, and little Chad may do, so, we do have to take those things into consideration and that type of thing. But what I'm saying is I fully agree with what's been proposed. Any other questions? Mr. Thomas?
Sam, can you help me out on where that drop off is? Because it looks like on the overhead here, that drop off would be in our picture right there around where the 15 is. So just behind the development.
So it does start quite, I don't want to say dramatically because it's all relative. It does start tapering there, yes. And then it just keeps going downhill. There is like a somewhat slanted flat spot, and then it just drops even more into the creek bed. But you do have, once you get down into that drop off area, it is all in flood zone. So you are correct that it starts tapering off. If you can actually kind of see a line right there around the 715 area.
And Chad worked well with the neighbors when that came up in the beginning. There was an issue from the gentleman that lived across 25 about water runoff and all of that. And Chad worked with him and worked all that out and everything. So he has always been very amenable to the neighbors and that type thing. Yes, sir.
So in what we have as it sits, he would have to build a fence along the full property line from the road all the way to the back of his property between him and Mr. Henry, correct?
That's the way it's written, yes. All of the property boundary. The only way he can get around that is he would have to sell a back portion of his property. Stanley Holder come back forward with a site plan during the site prep work to show that his line has now moved. But that's the only way he can get around that. He has to do the full length of the property that touches the property next door.
I have a question. If he doesn't want to put the barrier between the two developments, could they not co-join the property into one deed and get around that part of the barrier between the two properties?
I'm not sure I understand.
Where you got,
Yeah. Hypothetically, yes, I would have to look at that as an option, but I would say yes, hypothetically, they can join them, but I'm not him. I don't know if he is even willing to do that, but yes, hypothetically, I would say that it could be done. Just off of looking at it here, I have to, there's a lot of details to go into it, but yes, I believe that could be done.
You're talking about between his existing property?
Adjoining lot 3 and 4 that's on here. Getting rid of the line in between them.
Well, if we grant him the variance, he wouldn't have to.
He would not if you granted the variance.
Right. I mean, if we said no, then that would be another option for him. And we haven't voted, so we may say no. Other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Thomas.
Well, Mr. Chairman, because of the topography of the land and the denseness of the woods there on that side of the property, plus going to the back, I'd like to make a motion that we grant the variance on building the fence between lots 4 and 3, and that we grant a variance and approve this between 4 and 6, so that he only has to extend the fence to the beginning of that downward slope, which would be behind Mr. Henry's house itself.
Okay, so he doesn't have to kill himself. Right, okay.
And with that bottom being a floodplain, it's gonna rot out any fence he puts there anyway, so.
If it don't wash it out. Okay,
Based on Mr. Edwards' site inspection, I'd like to see what he's working with and say the fence can stop.
I think we should always have our inspector
In-
okay the,
Especially in this situation, I would say, yes, I'd like to add that to the motion.
okay. Does everybody understand the motion?
Mr. Kerr, as well
I'm
as
sorry.
the vegetation, because I don't want to do a blanket. He doesn't have to add extra vegetation between 4 and 6. I would like to see what's left after site prep and say we need more. Because the way it's written, he's required to put it.
Yeah.
But if we're giving him the variance, I'd like to observe it first.
Okay, well, in my variance, when I said the fence, I was referring to both the fence and it
You're
doesn't
talking
make
about
any.
the whole thing that we require.
It doesn't make any sense with you already have the vegetation to
Right.
not include the vegetation in the variance, but if I need to say that for clarification.
I
I'll
just
add
wanted to clarify that it's for both the fence and
and
the vegetation.
yes.
Okay. Do we understand the motion? Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Mark. Any other discussion?
John,
I'm sorry.
I just feel like we're going against what staff recommends between the 2 lots. I agree with the other part, but she recommends buffer between the 2 lots, and we're saying no. Is that right? We're saying we're not gonna make her do it, not make Chad do it, when she's recommended to put one between the 2 lots, correct?
That is my recommendation. The way I understood the motion was that it would not require the vegetation, is that correct? So the motion that stands would not would not require the buffer between the new development and the former or old or version of the.
And of course, what Keelan's doing and stuff is, and what she's taking our regulations and applying them as law, that's what she's supposed to do, and advising us as to what our regulations say. As this body has the authority to adjust those regulations when deemed necessary. So we are going against her, but it's not going to be the first time, and it's not going to be the
And I
last.
just wanted to make sure that we all understood that.
Yeah, and I think
too.
that's a good.
I
point.
don't look for Chad to sell one of the properties.
Right.
but Like she said, it could happen down the road.
It could.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously. Okay. Next is final plat approval for Thoroughbred Estates. For a bunch of square footage for lots 46 and 48 in the 7th district. Jim?
Okay, so this is, y'all had a rezone come through 3 or 4 months ago, Mr. Beasley, where all that back in Thoroughbred is inadvertently A1, and we moved a section to R1, but he's got a little over 2 acres right there that he's wanting to cut into 3 lots. If anybody needs a big plat, I've got them right here if you'd like to see something, but that's what we're looking to do, and be glad to try to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Jim? Okay, Keely?
Sure. So like we said, this is a request for final plat approval for a 3-lot subdivision. And those many square feet come out to be about 2.3 total acres. This property is zoned R1 low density residential. And the surrounding properties are zoned for residential use. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the R1 is 12,000 square feet, and all of the proposed lots exceed the minimum required lot size. There are no subdivision regulation issues. There's just 2 outstanding comments on the plat itself. They are that we've asked that they include the regulatory flood elevation and regulatory flood protection elevation as determined by the Planning Commission, as well as include the diameter and width of any driveway culverts. But once again, if the commission has confidence that Sam and I can address these comments, then staff would recommend approval contingent upon.
Okay, I'd like to speak to that real quickly, if I could. So what we've done, this is a zone A, and without getting real technical, zone A doesn't have elevations defined by FEMA. So I can't really put an elevation out through there. So what we've done, which I don't know, Keelan might have not even got a copy of it late this afternoon. We've actually removed all of the flood area out of the building envelope in the back, like we did on another one back a few months ago. And so we've actually made the flood zone the rear building setback line. So there will be no construction in the actual flood zone area. Okay. And as of right now, there are no driveways existing on this property.
Is that? Okay, questions for Keelan or any more for Jim on what he just said? Sam?
I have nothing further to add on this one. Jim, I mean, I can confirm what Jim said, that it's been changed. So, other than that, I mean, if you have any questions, you can ask.
Okay. Any questions from any member of the planning commission for Keelan, Sam, Jim, before we discuss with ourselves? Yes, sir.
So Keelan, the only issues that you would have left would be just A, B, and C then?
Well, so if the building setback lines have in fact been drawn so that no building can be done within that regulatory flood, then I would feel confident that that clears up that issue A. And if there are no existing driveways on the property, then that also clears up comment B. So I would say there are no existing. And I trust Sam that those have been taken care of.
Mr. Chairman, based on that, I'd like to make a motion to approve this site plan.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
A second.
Carol made a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously. All right. We have one last item on the agenda, which is just for those of you in attendance, this is just a discussion item for the members of the Planning Commission to discuss among ourselves. You're more than welcome to stay and absorb some more of our environment here. But I could understand if you didn't want to. I'm going to kind of start this discussion off since I'm the reason we're having it. I asked for it, and I think it kind of got convoluted somewhat. And I'll go back and tell you what made me think about this as they were. And this is nothing negative towards Dollar General whatsoever. Not a bit. But you know, when someone brings a project before you, and I guess I shouldn't, but I was thinking that what I was going to see as a product was kind of what I've been seeing of the ones they built recently. Castellan Springs, right across the river bridge on 231 going to Lebanon, those type things with a great amount of brick and that type of thing. Obviously, I shouldn't assume that. But what it made me think was, I know Dollar General has had to go by our building codes and that type of thing. So I thought that what we needed to begin a discussion on is, what are our building codes when it comes to commercial buildings like this? And would we want to change them, upgrade them or something? Because I do know that Wilson County and Sumner County, they had to go by their codes. And so I just wanted to kind of kick the ball off with that. Again, I shouldn't have assumed that, but since everyone I've seen in the last several years, they all kind of look the same. Some of them do have some metal at the top. It's brick up and then some metal at the top, but it's not what I expected. Now, I don't know how y'all feel about it. I'm telling you what I feel. And I want the future look of Hartsville and Trousdale County to be at least as good as our neighbors in Sumner and Wilson County. Comments?
Yes, and while we own that, I think we kind of, in the last two business that we approved have come through us here, I think we kind of dropped the ball on, if you look at, I agree with the building, but I think we should have had that entrance of that building, that Dollar General store, and the one even down there off on New Halltown Road. They should come out on 25.
Should do what?
Come out on 25. Because if you look at it, you get a 40 foot rig coming out of that, turning out of that driveway. You're gonna have a roadblock. You got two cars coming, gonna go into that subdivision, you creating a hazard. Same as down on 25 at that short radius. And it's no way they can come out of them places. And without blocking the road, to me, we're creating a hazard on 25. All the other business on 25 comes out on 25.
Well, what I would say to that is that what I'm bringing up is really apples to oranges to this. We had our road commissioner here and he approved it. That's his job. I'm not an expert on roads to make that decision. I agree with you as far as my personal feelings, but when I drive by that project, I could see why they didn't want to do that. That's a slope and a half out through there. But again, in theory, I agree with you 100%. But I think when we rely on our experts, our road commissioner in that case, the county attorney in our last meeting with the quarry, we have to take their advice and not that we have to go with it, but if we have questions, we really need to direct those questions at him. And there were several questions for the road superintendent at that meeting. But yes, sir.
To that, we really didn't take Mr. Scruggs's advice on that, because what he discussed was that if they were going to connect to Hickory Ridge, they were going to have to widen the connection to 25 because it wasn't built wide enough for trucks to come in and out of there. And I believe the motion that passed, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but the motion we passed did not include making them widen the road there.
I would agree with you, but that is definitely something that we could pull it and look at it tomorrow and verify. We did have into the motion that they would have to put in a turn lane to get, basically that turn lane is kind of, I know it's useless and silly, but it would get more of a turn radius into their lot and out. It let the truck turn sharper, but either way, it was a good addition to put it in there as a turn lane to add more spacing to get it off of the road quicker.
Well, if that's what we passed, they should be held to it.
Well, and they've already, you can already see where they've already made a setback onto their property for the turn lane.
Oh,
But the turn lane stops at the T-Dot's right of way, which is a good, 50 foot from the road. They did not take the turn lane all the way up to the intersection. They stopped it short at the edge of their property. What is
What's it
already
servicing then?
exactly.
They're getting to the point where they're finishing up the store, and when they start doing the road work, the actual pavement area, we'll be able to see a better idea of what they're doing and does it match what they submitted. Right now,
If you look at the site plan that was voted on and approved, their site plan shows that gap of the turning lane. It does not show the turning lane going all the way to the intersection, which was one of the complaints that I was making at the time.
that is correct, but what I'm talking about is I will actually get out there and measure and make sure that we've got as maximum amount that we can get out of them for that area, and it doesn't meet exactly what they say they're going to do. I will hold their feet to the fire on that one. But I can't make a guess right now on what it's going to end up in.
Well, I agree with David 100%. I think that in going forward, we're all for commercial development, but we want our commercial development to be as good as anyone else's and to be as safe. To me, that's a safety thing and that type of thing. And so if there's things that we need to change, upgrade, whatever we need to do, I would like to see us begin to discuss it and get some new regulations. Can anybody, and I'm not calling anybody out, but is there any brick at all on this building?
So yes, on the front where you see the silver tin, that is going to be bricked. And I will, but answering your question, then going further, keep in mind this type of structure is becoming extremely more popular. They go up quickly. They go in, they either spray foam or they use certain types of insulation material that is out there. But this type of structure is becoming extremely popular, and you're going to start seeing in a lot of areas. And I think listening to what you said in the beginning, what you're asking is we need to start looking at long-term planning, and we need to get it on paper. What do you want certain areas to look like?
I agree. I'm not concerned with quick and easy.
Yeah.
I'm concerned with the future look of our community and that type of thing. Again, I'm not blaming Dollar General. They had to build to our specifications. I'm fussing about our specifications.
I feel like we may have forgot to ask what they were gonna build it out of.
Well, we couldn't have done anything about it anyway. They have to build to our specifications. So obviously what they building was allowed
Yeah.
by us.
They still could tell us, or we should ask what they're gonna build it out of, maybe.
Well, if I was them, I would have just said, I'm gonna build it to what you require me to. And there's nothing we can do about that. It's on us. It's not on them at all. I think it's on us. Keely? Sure.
So I just want to add a little insight into some of what we're talking about in regards to regulation. So the design itself is typically regulated by design standards or design requirements, which are usually a accompanying document that is approved separate from the subdivision regulations or the zoning ordinance. That's done purposefully so that they can be a little bit more vague and be a little bit more lenient. If it's in the zoning ordinance, any variance at all requires it goes to the BZA. Anything from any regulation variance from the subdivision regulations requires a special exception, a whole extra step. The design standards are intended to be a little bit more interpretive. But those are something that are not existing within the subdivision regulations or the zoning ordinance. So really, when it comes to what we require that they submit, we require that they submit the plans that with enough detail for us to confirm that our regulations are being met. So it's difficult for us to require architectural drawings or those types of things when we don't have any standards to confirm them to. So my recommendation, and I hear what you're saying about certain areas. I think that's maybe step 2 a little down the road with deciding certain areas in the city, what we want those to look like.
Actually, I'm talking about all commercial entities.
Yeah, I think so. Design requirements are something that it will be a separate document that needs a bit of work put into it to create, but that is
I figured this was something we would need to develop and send to the county court for their approval. Am I right? Or is this something we can do? I would assume the county court would have to approve. Is that right?
I'm not sure exactly what the.
Okay, I understand you hadn't had a chance to look at it. I'm not trying to put anybody up in the spot.
Yeah, no, and I apologize that the notes I provided for this, all I had was the information from the agenda, which said powers of the board. So I just gave you whatever was in the TPA.
No, you don't have to apologize. This thing got turned around every which way to being about the quarry to, it never was about that.
Yeah, but I can definitely look into more what design requirements what kind of.
Let me ask you a
procedural
question, Keelan. You deal with other counties.
Yeah.
And stuff. How does Wilson and Sumner have them do that in their zoning?
So I'm not exactly sure for Wilson. I haven't worked with them that in depth to know that information, but Sumner County, they've actually gone an extra step. They require almost all of their development to be in a planned unit development. It's not what I recommend for Charlesdale County. That's because they're kind of experiencing slightly higher growth pressures from Nashville. So they need that. That's maybe something down the road for Charlesdale and Hartsville. But they have design standards. They have an entire packet with regulations that they hold everyone to. They require architectural drawings.
And they have a
building
whole staff
footprint.
to go through those and
Yeah,
everything.
Josh
I understand.
has a whole office. But I would say many communities of this size and growing in this way do implement design guidelines. And there are quite a few online that you can kind of check out from different communities around the area.
I'll work with Keelan, knowing what y'all are. I guess we're all unanimous. I think we all.
Does everybody agree with me?
I'll work with Keelan on it. It could end up being something that is as simple as just doing a 50% brick facade for commercial buildings, or all brick faces, brick 25%. It's written different ways everywhere, but you could do 100% front brick, 50% on sides and stuff into commercial buildings. And then warehouses, you can do a separate type of requirement on those, but we can break it down on what we think or desire. But that's something that we're gonna have to start digging into on what's our long-term plan and view.
I would like to start that because, when my wife and I get out and just ride around, if y'all have been told earlier, we're old and we got time. But, when you're coming through a town and you see the buildings and that kind of stuff, you get an impression of that town. And in my opinion, we're a young town when it comes to development. we have our historical area, which looks just like a historical area should, but we've got a lot of new commercial property that's going to be developed in the future. And if we can get what we would like to see our future look like done now, then we can have a say in this moving forward long past the time we're on this body and stuff. That's my goal.
Jeremy?
Yes, sir.
So where we have taken a lot of the commercial lots now and put those, they're right across, right in front of all the residential that we've done on 25. Imagine putting a pole barn as a business in front of each one of those nice subdivisions. And that's kind of what this particular Dollar General has done because we had no regulations. Yeah, they match the storage buildings across the street, but don't do anything towards the subdivision
I
behind
agree.
them
I agree.
or future houses that are going to become beside them. So yes, well, I think we need to do something. And Keenly, if we can do this as an addendum to our subdivision regulations, something that we can put together in-house here, I think that'd be a great way of addressing that because all of those would be something that would come through as a subdivision at this point, would they not? Because they were subdivision
I think
properties?
so. How we need to do it, I'm in favor of doing it. And I'm not in favor of, I don't know if I'm wrong in saying this, but we talked the quarry regulations to death, I guess. I didn't know that we were going to get one thrown on us as quick as we did. So I'd like to move on this expeditiously if possible, if that makes sense. Okay. Do y'all agree with me?
Yes, but why don't we extend it to all commercial buildings? Even if it's downtown historical area?
Well, the historical area has
some.
Well, it has some, but it also has its own set of regulations that was passed. Am I right about it? Don't, Mayor? I thought we
I
had
was thinking about the car wash place, which is a fine, good looking place, but it's a metal building right before the post office. It would have looked a bit, isn't it?
You're right. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. What's
Okay.
to stop somebody else from doing that?
And I agree. I'm talking about everywhere. Okay. I had been led to believe that the downtown historical district had to go through a special committee or something like that. Mayor, can you enlighten us on that?
I can't find that committee ever being established, and I can't find historically where any design criteria are ever done. The town of Hartsville said they were going to create some and then never did.
Okay.
So, but as you go forward, one of the things you are going to have to look at, since it is a historic district and for historic tax credit purposes and other things, you do need to look at a historic overlay district and design standards and all that stuff, because right now we don't have it in place. And I would like for that to be part of a long range planning, which we had discussed last August, I believe. Because we need a complete rewrite of our ordinances. Having talked to the staff at Sumner County, what we're working off of is actually a model policy created by the state of Tennessee in the mid-90s. And it has not been updated. And Sumner County went through and did a complete rewrite of theirs last year and took care of a lot of the issues we're having here. So that was something I hope we could get into going forward as a long range planning and get all that done, because you do need to look at where our infrastructure is, water, sewer, roads, electricity, where our growth area is going to be in the future, because the current plan we're working off of thought our growth was going to be about 7,800 people, and that was grossly inaccurate. So that is something that needs to be done. Matter of fact, as soon as possible, because it's
I
coming.
agree with the mayor 100%. I think he's right. Let's get going on this. And then we can start branching off into the other. I know John Oliver was involved in that, what I thought was done several years ago. Maybe somebody, I run into him or something and see what he says. He was on the county commission at that time and stuff, and see what he recalls and that type of thing. And Carol, I believe you were on there then. And you remember I remember us talking about that and stuff. And but sometimes things get done and said and stuff, and there's no record of it, is it, Mayor?
Well, one of the things that has happened is, I'll be honest with you, my observing of committees and all that stuff. So, well, we discussed this. Well, yeah, you discussed it. Nobody made a motion. It was never seconded. It was never voted on. You can discuss it all you want
Right.
until there's a motion and something passes. That's all you've done is discuss it.
Right.
And that has been an issue several times in the past. And that did happen because as we had going into our Tennessee Downtowns program, I had to go back and research all that because one of the questions was, do you have historic overlay regulations? And I went back and found that there was a packet put together of some suggestions from Historic Hartsville Group to the town of Hartsville. And they decided and they passed something saying, well, we're going to work on this over the next 2 years and they're going to bring something back to us. Well, that never happened because by the time you got into that, you were starting to get towards going metro and that never happened. So I can't find anything ever being passed that created a historic overlay district and any standards for our downtown, which was a tremendous headache during our downtown facade grants because I had to go back and research all this and tell everybody how they had to design their building.
Yes, sir.
And as far as the traffic situation, I actually talked with the superintendent and found out that he actually has a lot of properties that are actually connecting to the county roads and never giving him any heads up or talking to him at all. He doesn't find out till he drives by and, oh, there's a new driveway. Looking into the regs that we
You
have.
talking about the T-Dot guy?
No, I'm talking about Bill Scruggs. Looking, anyone who connects or even cuts a curb is supposed to go and talk to the road superintendent first. I got to looking at T-Dot's situation and T-Dot has you don't connect to anything of theirs without a permit. And I got to thinking, well, why couldn't we do in Trousdale the same thing? That you've got to get a permit to connect to our roads because they're obviously not following what we already have in place.
I see 3 county commissioners. I can't think of a better project than for 2 new ones and an old one to get going on that.
I always thought you couldn't get a 911 address if you didn't get your driveway approved. Is there nothing to that?
Well, I think we can put some teeth into it.
Okay,
That might be the way to do it.
okay.
But again, that's got to come from the county court and those directions. Mr. Thomas?
And while you was talking about the Dollar General, you know, the way, and Sam mentioned it there, and the way that drop off is, if something don't be there, that's gonna be a ugly piece of frontage right there.
Where are we talking about?
The Dollar General store. You know, they done already started building the pad for the front of it, but then it's gonna drop that off, you know? No.
No, out here.
You know, that's the reason why I still say we should have made them come out on 25. And we should look at the 2 that Jim brought in here in front of the Baptist church. They should come out on, all other business come out on 25.
To what lots? Again, we may need to include Mr. Scruggs in our, may have to ask him to come more. Because I'll be honest with you, you know, when I asked this, who's supposed to be the expert, you know, we should be able to rely on his answer. You know, at least that's my thinking. Guys, I appreciate everybody staying late and discussing this. Sam's got some.
I was just gonna mention that, you know, the lot that's right across from Dollar General, that's for sale. You can go on the realty site and look at it. So, I mean, it's gonna come again pretty soon, probably. So I'm sure they're gonna want to do the same thing. Whoever buys it. We'll see though.
So just to add about your, the Bill Scruggs thing, I think that can fairly simply be fixed. But I would like to add to that Bill is required to sign all those plats prior to them ever making it into my office. I get them last, and then I look at everybody's signatures, and then, okay, everybody says it's good to go. And then I stamp it. So he's aware.
Oh, he's signing them?
He has to sign them.
He may not realize what he's signing and what that bill, this is a
I
hand. You need to
actually
go-
have to be the last one to sign it and then Sam stamps it.
Yeah.
I can't sign it if there's anything blank on it
I need,
because I have sent it back.
Right.
Yes, but
So
he
it's-
does see it. I can't tell you if he retains copies. I don't know. But he does know the subdivision is going on this road. He does know how many lots it's gonna be. He gets his heads up, but we can add an extra step into that. I'll look into how to legally do it. We can add an extra step in that requiring them, because right now, they have to get their septic perk. They can't even come talk to me for a permit without proof that they could poop out there. So, we can add that.
And currently, this body, or in my understanding, even Bill, has no way of making a new development pay for changes to the road based on the added traffic that they are bringing. A permitted system like what the state has would give, whether it's Bill or us or whoever was decided by, I guess, the county court at that point, it would give them the authority to, okay, you need, and you're doing 150, unit place. You need exits on 2 different roads, or you can't do it. That way we don't have issues like we're going to have on Melrose if that development is ever created. Because as we all discussed at the time, we had no way of making them do a turn lane or anything. There's nothing in place for us to make any traffic, decisions that way.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not
just-
really our ball game. That's
Yeah.
Bill's.
It is. So I would like to have something.
Yeah.
Because
think it's
the current situation isn't working, and it's going to get worse as we have more and more builders from outside the county coming in and doing just the minimum because that's what they have to do.
I think we've all seen in the past several months that when it comes to rezoning property and stuff like that, we as a county, our elected officials, everybody has to take that more seriously. Yeah. All right.
We are starting to take advantage.
And yeah, I agree. Well, that's our fault if we let it. Anybody else got anything? Okay. Mr. Nall,
Make a motion to adjourn.
we are adjourned. Thank y'all for staying.